We're going to transition over to probably the hottest topic we all like talking about. Everybody's been sending texts, memes, everything. I think the big shocker of the weekend, we can get into all the hires here, is Lincoln Riley surprisingly turned down the LSU job, I believe, after Bedlam and jumps to USC. And I know a lot of us SEC, Scott, where it means more, says he's scared. He didn't want any part of that, so he bails for the West Coast. And I think he got like, what, $100 million. They were going to give him a $6 million house.
They bought both of his houses in Norman.
There you go.
Bought him a $6 million house in LA or Palos Verdes or some nice area. Unlimited access to the jet. And I want to say $100 million contract.
So I've heard the same thing. And here are my comments on it. Here's the thing that's funniest thing. He has this press conference like, look, I am not going to LSU. And nobody said anything about Southern California, though, and be like, hey, why are those moving trucks out at your house? I don't know what you're talking about. What are all these Trojans doing here? Me and my wife, we're having enough kids. We need more kids. And then that next day, he's going to Southern California. To your point, Hube, here's what I've heard, that the story that's out there, whether it's verified or not, is the guy who I think is somehow related with the Oklahoma program. He says, I heard $110 million on the contract. I don't know if it's I don't know how many years that's for. I can only assume 10 because every one of these damn contracts, 10 fucking years. Okay. And then I heard he's got 2 houses in Norman, which I don't know why you need 2 houses in Norman, but whatever. He's got 2 houses in Norman. They're going to pay They were going to pay $500,000 over the asking price, and then they're going to give him a $6 million house. And I heard the same thing, $6 million house in LA, because, if I've got $110 million, why would I want a fucking mortgage payment? Because what am I going to do, man? I can barely get by. And yes, 24/7 use of the private jet, which I tell you what, man, that is damn impressive.
So I think, and maybe we have to do some research, he probably is like Kirby and like Mac Brown and some of these other coaches. He probably has a house very close to campus so he can have recruits at his house, and he has his actual house where he actually lives most of the time.
So he if I understand that correctly, the recruits, you don't want the recruits in your actual house. You only want them in your game.
Well, no. House? So there's an NCAA rule, depending on like how far your house is from campus, you can host recruits at your house. But if you do not, if it's outside of that perimeter, then you can't have them at your house. So like Kirby has recruits at his house because his house is like basically on campus. So I think that's the reasoning behind it. He might have that house and a lake house in Norman or something. Okay.
So you're saying me Kirby Smart only has one house?
No, he has a lake house in Lanier.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would, I'm sure he's just barely getting by as well. So these contracts are just going to start going nuts. And me being a Big Ten guy, and Mel Tucker, man, I'm not saying that he won't be the best thing. I'm just saying at least Lincoln's taking you to playoff games. Hasn't won any, but he's taking you to some playoff games. And then these contracts are just getting nuts. Hey, Mel Tucker there's a ton of potential there, but he hasn't done anything yet. But they're scared to death that Michigan State's going to lose another top coach like Saban when he went down to LSU and won a national championship. And then James Franklin, he's been okay. You got a larger sample size, won the Big Ten one time, boom, 10-year contract. So we'll have you right there with Mel Tucker. Okay, great. Well, every other school, the Big Ten and all these other schools, they're all 10 years contract. I guess it started with Jimbo Fisher, right? Because he got that 10-year contract to go to Texas A&M.
Yep,
and the thing that's crazy is, and I don't blame him, because, I hope I could go and just coach, even though I guarantee if I coach any of these games, I guarantee a loss, okay, for my team. But you know what? Maybe that means a big contract. Give me 10 years and I'll happily go away after you fire me after a couple games. So the thing that's crazy is everybody thinks, hey, who's going to go and take these teams? Nobody's thinking about the current coaches that are already there, because you usually see a guy leave Oklahoma to go to Southern Cal, leave Notre Dame to go to LSU, leave a big program to go somewhere else. It's usually like, oh, Iowa State's got a good coach, take him away. Oh, Cincinnati, you got a good coach? Brian Kelly, Cincinnati, boom. He goes to Notre Dame, LSU. And I can't blame him because, the answer to all your questions is money, right? I mean, I'll happily take a 10-year contract. The Brian Kelly thing, I mean, who knows what else is going to, I'm sure there's going to be some other news that breaks, later this week. I mean, what are your thoughts on it, Sean? John, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. To me, it was, it's funny because I think I was actually talking with Trey a little bit on Sunday, and I said, it's funny because USC fired their coach before everybody else, and it doesn't look like they really have a plan in mind. And boy, did they have a plan in mind to get a coach. I mean, this is almost. It's almost, I'm trying to figure out who the more irate fan base would be. Was it Tennessee when Lane left, or is it going to be Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley going out there? It's kind of ironic it was both to USC. To me, it's an interesting move. I mean, he's obviously a great offensive mind, a great quarterback coach. To me, the problem with him has always been, the defensive side of it. I think it's still a bit of an underrated side too. You can't just win solely with offense. So I think it'll be interesting to see what he does with his defensive staff. Because even if he gets to the playoffs, I'm not certain he's going to really get them national titles without a defense. And to me, it's going to be interesting to see what Oklahoma does too, because it kind of seems like that, they were taken a bit surprised by it. And a lot of these other teams have momentum and are further along in negotiations than they were obviously prepared to be. So it'll be interesting to see.
My question for you, Sean, you're always is he a West Coast guy? Because you're always like you got to have that Cali West Coast feel for the recruits. And I know he's going to try to get all these 5-star QBs that everybody's been plucking out of the state. Do you think he's going to be like that West Coast guy and kind of clean up in California on recruiting?
I mean, he's definitely not a West Coast guy, but I kind of feel like, I think he can work out there. He's got a great resume, especially for quarterbacks. I mean, what's he got? 2 Heisman Trophy winners.
Yep.
And a finalist.
A finalist. So,
and two first round, first number 1 pick overall. So, and here's the other thing, Sean. Look at some of the top quarterbacks right now in college football: C.J. Stroud, California; Bryce Young, California; DJ Uiagalelei, I can't say his last name. You know what I'm talking about? Clemson quarterback, California; JT Daniels. He started at Southern Cal. Does he leave? And they had all these top 5-star guys that were coming to Oklahoma. A bunch of them decommitted because the new early signing period, which might as well just call the signing period, right? That's why you leave now, because you got to start thinking about next year. I mean, here's the thing about USC. USC is the same as it should be there in Georgia. If you recruit from 100-mile radius, around that campus, man, you should have the talent to win a national championship. So if you can get those guys to stay home, he gets the recruits, man. And what he's done with the 2 Heisman winners and a finalist and all the other draft picks. And I think was Jalen Hurts, was he a first round draft pick or was he second round draft pick?
Second round, early second.
Okay. So high draft pick. I mean, the guy knows quarterbacks. So I think it's a good fit. And then to answer your question from a long time ago there, Trey, yeah, I do think he's scared about going to the SEC because they're still, I think, will do good, but they're not going to dominate like they were in the Big 12.
Yeah. I mean, I think from a recruiting perspective, he already got the quarterback commit to flip to USC. Like that happened right before we got on this call. So Malachi Nelson, number 2 quarterback in the nation for 2023.
Really?
Already flipped. And then his teammate, Makai Lemon, decommitted today. So like those kids in California are going to stay. I was talking about this on the board earlier. It's like because people were saying, oh, he's not going to be able to get defensive talent. I'm like, yes, he will. I'm like, think about kids like Kayvon Thibodeau, kids like Elias Ricks, those kids that are in SEC footprints or in other playing for other teams right now would be at USC. Why? Because they know there's going to be a product on the field that can win and they're going to be able to put up points. And so like it's going to, I don't think Lincoln's an elite recruiter, but I think he's an underrated recruiter because to recruit Oklahoma, I don't care what prestige like blue blood they have in the past. Who wants to go to Oklahoma? And they've gotten some players to commit there that are from Florida, from the Southeast, from California. It's going to be easier for him to recruit in California. You're going to have kids like Kendall Milton, who was a USC fan, not be at Georgia because Lincoln Riley's at USC. So if they can sustain winning, if he comes out next year and wins 9-10 games, oh boy, watch. There's going to be a recruiting coup of California kids, West Coast kids, like kids like we got Keely Ringo, kids like Darnell Washington that are not leaving that region. They're going to just go to USC, especially because they know they're going to get to put up numbers on the offensive side. Now, as far as him being scared, he was definitely scared. Like you could see when he was talking about them going into the SEC, you could tell he was pissed. Like, bro, what did you guys sign me up for? Yeah. Like, we're winning conference championships every year, and you want me to go play Bama? You want me to go play Georgia? Mm-hmm. Every year? LSU?
Nope.
Now I'm got a question for you, Hube. I've talked about this with Trey and Sean. How do you think they're going to split the divisions? Because if they go and you have Texas and Oklahoma, it's got to be in the SEC West. So who do you move to the East? My guess is Arkansas, maybe Auburn.
Auburn and Alabama, probably.
Well, so I think it would be right now. You had two in the West. You'd have to just add one team to the East, right?
I don't know, man. I think they might push to keep the Iron Bowl a thing. They probably would push Alabama and Auburn to the East.
Well, because if I was just looking on geography, I was like, well, hey, Missouri, but Missouri's in the SEC East, and isn't it West Alabama like geographically?
But I think that was probably more of a we're not going to give Missouri a bone and put them.
Well, and I think the other thing too, not only was it to keep the Iron Bowl together, but Georgia and Auburn, it's kind of, I guess, on paper. So I guess it's our second biggest rival outside of for Auburn. Exactly. So there's a lot of tradition there too, and it just makes it easier.
Yeah, that's why I think they would if they stay in divisions, it only makes sense to push Alabama and Auburn over and make Alabama LSU a cross divisional game every year like we did with Auburn.
Right.
Because if you're going to do that geographically is just a mess. It's already bad enough that Missouri's over there, right? And so,
well, and to your point too, it's the only thing you don't want to have is they're not going to change that Auburn Alabama game for being the last game of the year. You don't want to play that and then play it again the following week. At least with the LSU game is it's early November. So if LSU and Bama play, then they play again, but at least it's 4 weeks later. I think it takes away from a little bit if you play the last game of the year, then you play, the week after. You know what I mean?